Let's go to the old folks' home. We can see Grandma and all get stoned. Oh, hello. Well, look who I've got here. It's our friend. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hello, sweetheart. No, not inside my mouth. Come on. Come on. Oh, hello, buddy. Hello, amigo. Oh, say hello. What? Ooh. You're the best. Very long. Just FYI. All right, what if you were to go over here? All right. And then we could switch to dog view. Dog view. Oh, oh, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. Oh, look at this dog. Oh, 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 what a sweetie. No, all right. Enough of all that. Enough of me. Enough of everything but finishing this book. Looks like we're going to get into Proverbs here. Proverbs 26:3. Hello. Let me let the IRC know what we're all about. There we go. I'm gonna win this Twitch game by hook or by crook. No, 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 no. Yeah, why does this keep fading out? All right, hold on. How about here? Is this better? That is a little bit better, I think. The origin of the English language name Monkey Puzzle. What? Huh. Weird. I've never heard of a monkey puzzle. All right, let me see here. Cinco says, "Hey, where are you from? I'm from Brooklyn, New York, by way of New Orleans. Real talk. I'm watching Joy of Painting and trying to nap, but here I am. I know, all right? Why would you nap when you could edit a future award-winning book with your boy Zach ZYZ?" Mm. I don't know why I'm drinking Coke Zero after I went to Burger King today. Terrible mistake. I was like, yeah, let me get in on this cyclospora or whatever parasite. Now my eyes won't focus. Feel awful. Yeah, I was just, why do I do it to myself? I knew it was a bad idea when I rolled into the drive-through too. It's just, it's just for heroin. So, all right, hold on. I wonder if this threshold needs to be higher or something. This really is bugging me so much. Maybe that's better. No, we'll have to figure it out. All right. So did Bob Ross really die of AIDS? I didn't know that. Hold on. Let's find out what he died of. Let's see. Bob Ross. Cause of death. Complications from lymphoma. He was 52 years old. He's a year older than me. At the time of his passing in Orlando, Florida, he kept it a secret from the public. And his son speculated that prolonged exposure to paint thinner might have contributed to his illness. I'm cruising for a bruising myself. Like, I've had so many solvents in my life. You know, it is what it is. Ain't what it ain't. Either you can or you can't. Well, I'm not a big fan of the Bob Ross style of painting. But he did seem alright. What was up with that perm though? What was he all about? I still do not understand it. Alright, I got Lek joining in here. Every once in a while, Lek will get the idea that he can sell. Oh. Well, you just drink the paint thinner and turpentine. Jesus. What's wrong with me? I need to talk. Alright. Let's get down to it. We're up to chapter 38. So if you were following along in the edit, you missed like the last 4 or 5 chapters. They're really strong chapters in the book. So I was out in my garage with acetone last night. Oh yeah, acetone, xylazine. Wait until the VA comes about the sparkly metallic gum lubrication that said "Do not touch with your hands" all over about it. Oh yeah. Well, not this VA, buddy. They're not releasing any data. Got them Epsteins and the. I think apparently they're having trouble tracking down the cyclospora or whatever because they gutted the CDC. Thanks, Elong. Maybe it was the FDA. Well, whatever it was. Like, they can't figure out which crop it is. And they have some fertilizer that's basically just human sewage. And the only way they can keep parasites and stuff like that from crossing over is to treat it with lye. And there's no lye coming in because we blew up the Strait of Hormuz. It's all stuff I learned from watching NPR. None of it might be true. Also, I don't listen to NPR because it gives me a headache. The reptilian mind control rays. You know what it is. All right, well, let's get down to editing. Enough of my mucking about and so forth. Ooh. Always takes my eyes a while to adjust. I should have gone for a walk before I started doing this. But I did not. So here's chapter 38, Proverbs 26:3. You need help to beat a 13-year-old? Father Domingo asked. Una wondered if they taught that supercilious little smirk in seminary. Oh yeah, -1 point for you? Alright, let's get that over with there. And you're still in the lead, you know? I really don't, it's not worth quibbling over any points whatsoever. The points are the will of the gods, and sometimes you're going to get just ones, and sometimes they're going to be unjust. And that's just what it is. There's no justice. There's just ice. A frozen wasteland full of Arctic trolls. Edit ace? Edit ape? I will make... If you win, Sloth, I will make you an edit ape hat. Maybe I should give out an edit ape for last place. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Una wondered if they taught that supercilious little smirk in seminary. Every priest she'd ever met had used that wry, "my child" smile to trivialize her concerns. Every priest she'd ever met had used the same wry, "my child" smile to trivialize her concerns. It was infuriating. He's very bright, she explained. Father Domingo scratched at the stubble on the side of his face. He had a weak chin and would have looked better with a beard. When Una was a girl, she once asked a deacon why all priests were clean-shaven. The lecture that followed invoked Pope Alexander III and Durandus, but never actually answered her question. She continued to wonder for years until at last a nun explained. Until at last a nun explained. It was so their mustaches didn't dip in the chalice. Una cracked up and the nun did too. They both laughed into their hands. After that, she'd never quite looked at priests the same way. Why not "my child" smile? It's because, "my child" is, what the priests say, "my child." Yeah, I don't like it the same, with "my child" smile. But, I agree. The smile is a thing, but it's not a my child. Okay, yeah. That makes sense. I do not know the rules. Hello. Come to visit our edit yet again. Is the queen of the edit. Hello. Hello. Say hello, Hachi. Say hello, pup. Look, it's your fans. Mm-hmm. It's all your amigos. This big sloth. There's logic. Oh my god. He will never stop smooching me. Hello. Hello. Oh, you're sweetie. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, all right. Up. Ah. Down you go. Oh. Let me see. None shouldn't be capitalized. That's just wrong. About all tongue of it, yeah, seriously. Well, we're talking about parasites, and, you know, I'm the same person who's always giving people a hard time for being rife with toxoplasmosis, and here I am, getting a tongue bath by a dog. All right, good one, Al, you got that? Mm-hmm. Them ears. Oh, she's a sweetie. I pet that dog probably about 300 or 400 times a day. Una cracked up, and the nun did too. They both laughed into their hands. After that, she'd never quite looked at priests the same way. Let me ask around, Father Domingo offered. The priest trundled off with her shoebox full of painted birds, in no particular hurry. Una watched, impatient. Una watched impatiently. She was sure she could overtake him, bad hip and all. Asking for help was a mistake. She stood in the nave and glanced through the Stations of the Cross. Her eyes fell on Mary in her alcove. Even she only lost one. Okay, so she there is capitalized. So, rookie numbers, gotta get pet. I don't think I can legally pet the dog more than that. You know, eventually the dog is just like, come on, guys, stop it, right? Although I have a golden retriever, also, he would never say stop it. He's one of those, like, he puts the paw on you when you stop petting him. He's like, hey, let's get back to business here, guys. His name is Hugo. Even she only lost one. Sunlight caught the monstrance and glared in her eyes. Una turned away and shook her head, struck by her own irreverence. Confession would be rough, if she even went. No, I think there's not supposed to be a comma there. This is a M- moment. The reason why we're using an M- there is confession would be rough, if she even went. It is an interruption. And interruptions are like the spot where I think M-dashes are actually suitable. Each week, it took more effort to force herself to come. Each week, it took more effort to force herself to come to San Felipe. If not for the clay birds, she might have skipped Mass today. She hadn't felt a sliver of grace since Robin got sick. Father Domingo took his sweet time. Una nearly sat down in a pew. Yeah, let's put down in there. Una nearly sat down in a pew, but she wanted him to feel bad for keeping her waiting. It wasn't the first time she'd become disenchanted. After Hector died, Una lapsed for 6 months. Before she returned, she secretly dipped her toes into a few other churches, just to see how it felt. The Pentecostals were too crazy. The Episcopalians were so lax she barely felt like she was in church. The Pentecostals were too crazy, and the Episcopalians, this is a comma. because it's two independent thoughts, or two independent clauses, sentences, really. The Pentecostals were too crazy, and the Episcopalians were so lax she barely felt like she was in church. In the end, she came back to San Felipe de Neri. It was a long drive with the gas prices so high, but it felt like home. So this is 1979. It's in the middle of the oil crisis, by the way, which we were about to be in another oil crisis. So there was actually, I believe, at the time, gasoline rationing going on, and you would have to go to the gas station on alternate days based on whether your license plate was odd or even, or ended in a letter or something like that. They had some system for it or whatever. And people would just line up and wait for like 2 hours to get gasoline. If you've been in Venezuela recently, it was going on there. And then I think there was a coup in Uruguay or somewhere. No, not the "you are gay" country, but somewhere. I'm trying to think if it was Bolivia or something like that, where they were having similar issues with diesel fuel and so forth. So I don't know exactly where. So this story takes place right now. It's like May in. It's not quite into June yet. So it's like May of 1979. So I don't know exactly where rationing is and how it is in that particular part of the country. I think it might be a little easier close to like Texas where all the refineries are, but I don't know for sure. She tapped her foot in the nave. With nothing to keep her hands busy, all the things she didn't want to face seemed to shout from the pews. I don't like seem to shout from the pews. With nothing to keep her hands busy, all the things she didn't want to face. Mm-hmm. What do I want to say here? Mm-hmm. Not like quite haunted her, but yeah, bubble up is fine. With nothing to keep her hands busy, all the things she wanted to ignore bubbled to the forefront. Money was tight again. She'd overspent on those little army men. Dr. Suarez was guarded every time they talked. Una wished she would just Una wished she would just lie and tell her everything would be all right. At night, the blasted coyotes were getting closer. She called the city again for the dog catcher, but no one came. She shouldn't even be here. She ought to be with Robin. Dog catchers and animal control wouldn't deal with coyotes. I looked into this, right? In specifically to Albuquerque. Keep in mind, this is in the city of Albuquerque here, and I think I distinctly remember like looking this up, and this is who you would call. It could also be that some crazy old lady calls them up and they're like, oh yeah, we'll get right on that. Get out of here. Who do you think she should have called, Sloth? Because Una's supposed to be competent. You know, she should potentially know the right person to call. Like, they would deal with wild coyotes that aren't attacking stuff. So this part of what is it? Albuquerque is right by the Rio Grande, and then there's like I think it's a Rio Grande. There's Normally, you don't call for coyotes howling. Well, she's calling about the coyotes, like running up around her house, is the thing. And this is a new thing. This is coyotes kind of migrating into the city, which is took a while to happen there. Mm. And also, it'd be every night. It's a shame she doesn't have like a cat or something to like justify why she's worried about the coyotes. But she does give a. The other part of it too is that so in her childhood or whatever, I don't know if you were there for that part of the edit, but she was a shepherd when she was like a very young girl, like maybe around Robin's age. Anyhow, um, how important is this? Every night, the blasted coyotes were getting closer. She called the city again for the dog catcher, but no one came. She shouldn't even be here. She ought to be with Robin. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna let this slide. This comes across so weird as a rural liver. Yeah, but they're not rural, right? They're in. This is like they're maybe like a mile. They're in Albuquerque proper, right? The part that they live in, it's not rural at all, right? And she doesn't have like a gun. Um, yeah, they're in her mind. There should not be coyotes there. And I could see her being enough of like a sore-headed old crank to call up and bitch about him. But like my city wouldn't do anything if a coyote came in. Let's find out. Let's see. Yeah, this is so the problem is like I can't remove this necessarily. They would call animal control. Yeah, animal control. They've been expanding. There was an animal control center on the east side of town. They mainly dealt with like domestic dogs. A dispatcher would, the real authority would be the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish. If they were actively destroying property, threatening livestock, or attacking pets. There was animal damage control, highly active for predator eradication and so forth. All right, and even her calling like animal control a dog catcher because she's old. So let me see. Well, they told her to call Fish and Wildlife. There. She shouldn't even be here. She ought to be with Robin. Does that fix your concern there? Mm-hmm. Let me see. How does it sound? She called the city again for the dog catcher, but they told her, yeah. Oh, I like this better. Actually, hold on. I had the name of the actual department that they would use there. They fobbed her off to. Yeah, cool. All right, I like this a little bit better. I'm going to give you a point, Sloth, because I think ultimately, authenticity is important here. And it works a little bit better. So put you up to a lucky 7 points. How am I sick, by the way? I have seen like nobody in days. Just been like completely isolated and still getting sick somehow. Here it's Fish and Wildlife for sure. Um, but they would also tell her to FO. Yeah. Well, it's okay for her to come across as like kind of a Karen. Although they didn't have Karens back then. But she's definitely like a annoying old lady in some way, shape, and form. She shouldn't even be here. She ought to be with Robin. Overwhelmed, Una nearly turned on her heel and left. Father Domingo would probably think she'd gone senile and wandered off. But she needed more birds. When she wasn't at the hospital, she was painting. It was the only thing that kept her mind from straying into darkness. Una? Father Father Bartolome Jonas was the opposite of Father Domingo in many ways. The rector was a small dark man who moved with a sense of purpose and urgency. As his 80th birthday neared, more and more of his duties fell to the younger priest. Mm-hmm. Every time I write Jonas, I've got to copy this character. Annoying. As his 80th birthday neared, more and more Father Jonas's duties fell to the younger priests. His slide into retirement was a large part of Una's discontent. Something irreplaceable was lost. Father. In spite of herself, Una smiled for the first time that day. Father Jonas was a cornerstone of her life. He'd married Una and Hector right here in San Felipe, and baptized baby Lucinda. He visited Hector at Lovelace Hospital and gave his eulogy. If she'd known Domingo would bother Father Jonas over something so frivolous, she never would have asked. How is he? Jonas asked. Una's answer stuck in her throat. Her face said everything. Father Jonas set a hand on her shoulder. Are you hungry? Let's get lunch and talk about it. Yes, Una said immediately. Okay. That's an easy chapter to get through there. Not a lot to edit. Small improvement in Fish and Wildlife Service. I can't remember what Proverbs 26:3 is. Here, hold on. Let's see. Oh, wait, is that the... No, that's not it. Let's see. It is... Oh, I should remember this. A whip for the horse, a bridle for the donkey, and a rod for the backs of fools. All right, so it's actually this shouldn't be the it shouldn't be the name of the chapter at all. Just because we did some moving around of the chapter. So he actually says the quote from Proverbs 26:3, but it's later when they're at lunch. So that is not the place to name this chapter that. This will be chapter 38, and we got to come up with a title for it. Yeah, now that I don't like to title chapters normally, but on Royal Road you really have to, because people when they like surf your, they search through the queue, they see what am I saying here? So when people look for stuff, they find they see the title of your book and the chapter name. So you both want to have like a chapter name that is kind of like a hook or that's interesting or something like that. And you just want to give as much data as you can. Uh-huh. What? Well, why did this cut off? I almost cut off half of this thing. Exactly. Sloth. I could try that. Just have a different profane name for every single thing. Mm-hmm. Here, let's That's entitled the chapter "Help to Beat a 13-Year-Old." Oh, and it's totally innocent too, so I can't get in trouble for this. Oh, yeah. Was it, the thing is that you guys are gonna like cajole me into just having like more and more risque chapter titles until it's over. I love it. Put some emojis in the chapter titles. Yeah, like just like a little crying emoji. I don't know if you can even do that, but that is a way to get the. Oh, that's perfect. Help to beat a 13-year-old. Uh, this is a short chapter. This is like 400 words. Let me see how long this guy is. Dashboard. By the way, I don't know if you want to gander at this, but I've got 9 fictions on here. Although really it should be 8 because one is there twice. 282 total chapters. 581,000 words. I've received 27 reviews, which I really need more, by the way. And then I have 421 unique followers across all these books. Most of them are for, I guess, Zeros and for the Master Arcanist, and they're no good on Zeros because, like, it's done. I'm not writing more on it. And Gravit has like 100 followers. I didn't even see that. It's crazy. But Martillo only has 18. So, and then the most recent comments I got: getting old is hard, and he has so many plans. Daydreaming, favorite pastime before internet or smartphone. Like the guy doing these comments, SU2000, he reminds me of the Those Beans guy. You know, that Facebook ad where it's an old guy commenting on Bush's beans. He's like, I've been thinking about those beans, and he spells those THOS. Hell, that's a real one right there. Anyhow, shout out to Sandin for his fake review on this on the 14th of this month. He's a real one. And then Nara, I don't know who that is, but they've read like all of my stuff and usually have some nice comments and stuff. All right, so here we can get off of that dashboard. Oh, you know what I was going here for is I wanted to see. Yeah, this is 693 words for that chapter. It's very brief. But we're gonna do a few more. So chapter length mainly matters if you are only doing one chapter a week or whatever. So that was that 38? All right, so let's do chapter 39. I actually don't know if my voice will hold up to do chapter 39 here. Let's push through. Just because like all y'all are in chat and so forth. It's more fun when you're here. But yeah, definitely. A horse is a horse, of course. Beyond Sparfadil, the map burned from all 4 corners. Yeah, I'm gonna make an executive decision to just stop here. I'm sorry. It was only like 30 minutes. But I need to do a show tomorrow, and I have to edit again, whatever. And I am not liking the feeling in my throat. So, yeah, let me just pause it because honestly, like I was hoping to clear up or whatever, but it is getting worse. I know. R.I.P. Let me get some honey on this and chill out a little bit. Chew on a garlic clove. No, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just do it. Beyond Sparfadil, the map burned from all 4 corners. In the southeast, the 3 harbor cities of Scimitar Bay were engulfed in a strange plague. Born by rats and bad habits, the Grey Malays. Okay, so anybody who has gandered at my Twitter knows what I'm talking about with the Grey Malays. I just have like such a horrible Twitter. It really is just pure like 2000 era internet, just constantly me just spewing it out to an audience of just nobody. But I will never stop. What was the most recent one? Hold on, let me see if I can do anything off of this thing without having to send in $1. All right, let's see. Let's see. I think you have to log in to Yeah, you have to log in to see any of my tweets because they're like, I guess I'm blacklisted. I'm not logged in on this thing here. Anyhow, it's I'm not supposed to populate these two streams. I'm gonna have to give them a DNA sample soon. Ugh. Oh yeah, seriously. I think Elon already wants your like. It's just annoying that like Twitter, which is where you go to post stupid nonsense. One, they changed the name, which why the new one's not better, and then two, like it's just there to post dumb stuff, and then nobody can see it. So I don't know. I'll have to go get banned on Blue Sky or something. In the southeast, the three harbor cities of Scimitar Bay were engulfed in a strange plague. Born by rats and bad habits, the gray malaise kindled in the dockside slums of Pikerton and burgeoned through the stilted shanty towns of Blackers Bay. The disease snuffed 1 in 3, but none were truly spared. The infected developed a dull gray film over their eyes and horrid pockmarks that oozed ink-black ichor. A week-long fever baked their brains, and they writhed in gutters, beset by religious visions. The few who survived the fiery gauntlet were forever changed. They cut all ties to family and friends, abandoned their possessions, and wandered as holy men. They were eager to share their new perspective with the world. Yeah, not giving any more I know, right? In horror, the merchant lords of Azora Majora, of Azza Majora, enacted a strict quarantine. Azza Majora was the jewel of Scimitar Bay. 1,000 bridges spanned the Isles of Ashez. 100,000 souls lived beneath her blue domed spires. They halted all trade. Boats were turned away. Those who did... Boats were turned away, and those who did not obey were barraged and sunk. With her deep springs and fishing fleet, Azza Majora was poised to ride out the plague while the mainland burned. Well, it's 3 now. No. But aren't they a unit? Yeah. Azza Majora is the name of the city. It's like an island. Or like a city-state, rather. Azza Majora is something else. Lords halted at L'Eltre. Well, let's not call it the City of Bridges. Okay, cool. Yeah, we can do this. Oh, yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying here. Let's not call it an archipelago. The island city was the jewel of Scimitar Bay. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so honestly, this is a pretty good commentary here because we're just going in too many directions. Mm-hmm. Like that island city? Yeah. Sprawled across a lush archipelago, the island city was the jewel of Scimitar Bay. What is this supposed to be? A thousand bridges span the Isles of Ashez, and 100,000 souls live beneath their blue dome spires. The lords halted all trade. Boats were turned away, and those. Oh, here, let's give Sloth a point here, because I think that is a valid concern. Even though I badly want to like blaze through this chapter. So this whole chapter is just giving you an idea of what's going on in the world of the fantasy campaign. It's like it's kind of an info dump, really. Foreign boats were turned away, and those who did foreign boats were turned away. Those who did not obey were barraged and sunk. With her deep springs and fishing fleet, the city the city was poised to ride out the plague while the mainland burned. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, all right. We can do two. With her deep springs and fishing fleet, Asa Major was poised to ride out the plague while the mainland burned. Early one morning, a gray-eyed man washed up on the white beach of Governor's Manse. Early one morning, a gray-eyed man washed up on the white beach of the Governor's Manse. Somehow, he'd survived the swift currents and sharks. A lone watchman found him and swiftly ended his raving with a spear through the throat. A manse is a fancy word for mansion. It's like a more feudal version of. So I think manse and mansion are related. Let's check out the Wiktionary. Manse. From Middle English, mansion, aphoretic version of Amantian, and the verb is to excommunicate, and mansus, dwelling, a house inhabited by the minister of a parish, a family dwelling, a large house, a mansion. Okay. Let's see. So yeah, it's kind of like saying manor or mansion or whatever. You just use the fancy word. That's how you know it's a fantasy novel. TIL. Yeah, I'm chilling in my McManse with a 20-piece McNuggers. Let's see. Mm-hmm. He told no one what he'd done and turned the body back into the surf with the butt of his spear. A problem for the sharks. The next morning, he woke with a black pock on his cheek. It began. Getting banned from McDonald's because of Lowe's immense vocabulary. You're like, no, in Middle English, like it was legit to call them McNuggers. In a panic, Anvilan dispatched her most devout clerics to save Asa Majora. They came with their holy water and censers, blessing everything with the Emperor's sacred name. Within a week, every last priest was infected and raving in the streets with the rest. Soon, a former colleague came to lead them. Soon, a disgraced priest rose to lead them. Defrocked for heresy and depravity, Björg the usurper was locked in the Tower of Tribulation. This is all like super fun fantasy stuff, by the way. Like it doesn't necessarily like tie into the story, and an editor might cut it, but like it's really harkens back to like the time of Clark Ashton Smith and Robert Howard and like the old pulp magazine type stuff. I love all that jazz. The good parts of it, like some of it's just bad. Just putting it out there. Some is trash. I'm not a big fantasy guy, but these fantasy chapters have been great. I mean, they're supposed to work for non-fantasy readers just because of the framework. That's one of the reasons why you do like a split narrative where there's some real stuff and some whatever. It's supposed to be a grab bag. And there's like military history in this. There's, medical drama and so forth. It really is supposed to be something that everybody can geek out on in this somewhere. Soon, a disgraced priest rose to... No. Mm-hmm. Bit of cheese to get it over the line. Yeah, I hear you, man. No, that was... A familiar face came to lead them. Defrocked for heresy and depravity, Björg the usurper had been locked away in the Tower of Tribulation ages ago. Already cracked, he embraced the plague and its revelations and set about shaping the madness into a movement. His scriptures were gibberish, and his miracles were actually pacts with the Black Princes. The infected did not care. They were eager to join the Grey Crusade. Asa Majora swelled with strife until it burst. Boats fled in all direction, and the plague sailed with them. Soon the neighboring provinces were aflame and in danger of falling under the usurper's sway. There was no one to quell the rebellion. The Grand Imperial Army was deployed half a world away. This is a good spot for a semicolon, actually. It works. In the northwest, the black legions of the Bladed Ladies spilled from the Vanian Mountains and stormed across the cold plains of Skyr.
A string of empty cities lay in their path, abandoned as their inhabitants. Inhabitants seems weird. Hmm. And they're not citizens. This is like a... Abandoned as refugees fled for Lastgate Fortress. A string of reeking Ragans rattled behind the Chaos hosts, pursued by great swarms of flies. Inside were the skulls of all who'd failed to flee. Meant to be a tribute to the Bladed Lady. Mm-hmm. Inside were the skulls of all who'd failed to flee, intended for a great tribute to the Bladed Lady. There were 20,000 more heads to claim in Lastgate. From the northeast, a tide of fiends spilled over the blasted hills of the Raskinjaun, bent on the same goal. A still darker fate awaited the unfortunates in their path. Whole villages were captured and paraded before the Black Palanquin. Reborn, the Riftmaster worked his vile will on the captives. Their skins stretched, their bones shifted, and their limbs split. The cohort of Chaos drove these spidery wretches before them in a skittering herd. The abominations begged for death, but their masters only scourged them forward, towards battle. So when you say a bit of cheese, are you talking about like what we got going on with this chapter, Stratum? Where it's an overflowing font of Ramunda. The alignment of the alignment of the alignment of two chaos factions was as rare as terrible as a total eclipse. Rune King Hermionir dispatched his swiftest ships to beg for aid. Each carried a grim warning. If Lastgate fell, the realm would follow. Inside the fortress, the Windsworn prepared with little hope. Doom marched closer by the day. Oh no. Oh, this goes on for so long. Let me see. Also not big into fantasy. But if they make it fun, cheesy, I can get into it. Well, this is definitely... It's pretty hokey, bro. In the southwest, a battle for the ages raged. High in the soaring mountains of the old Enterwald, the Blackclaw horde warred against their oldest rivals. For a week, the olden dwarves of Shining Peak withstood the siege, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Blackclaw goblins came day and night, possessed with an unnatural discipline. The dwarves were too few, and each goblin they slew had 3 more behind him. Stratum, did you like that Dungeons and Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves or whatever? Nerds are always raving about it, but I feel like it's one of those things where I would go and see it, and I would be like, I don't understand you people at all. Because I like D&D, and it has it doesn't have like Tommy Carcetti from The Wire or Littlefinger or whatever in there. Hugh Grant's in there. I think he continues whoring throughout the movie. Yeah, like a few people have told me it was dope, but I think it might have been a flop.
I can't keep track of all the names, families, group, hordes. That is a big part of fantasy, so comedy makes it better. Never seen any D&D things. I'll probably like watch it at some point, like on a plane or something. Maybe I'll get high on. Well, I can't get high because I got editing to do. Ain't that a shame? As defeat drew near, a new hope thundered in the east. A great rumble of flapping feet churned the earth, and a haboob swallowed the horizon. Painted faces emerged from the dust, crazed with bloodlust. The Gore Lord had come to settle the score. High above, Brackakak cackled with glee. Mounted on monstrous bats, the Sorcerer Supreme and his wizards swooped over the battlefield and rained down flasks of acid and withering hexes. So here, yeah, you just want to end on your more horrific of your two things there. The Blaclaw were trapped between two foes. There was no way out but through. For 7 bloody days, the 3 armies ground against each other in the salt plains and stinging geysers of the great Sisyphus crater. When the battle ended, not one spot of white sand remained. All was red. The Blaclaw were the victors, but what had they won? So here's a problem. Elsewhere we describe goblin blood as green. And how could all be red if there's... Well, anyhow. Yep. We'll have to figure it out later. But that is, that does strike me as a... Alright, here. That's like a whole book type problem that you gotta fix there. I'm gonna comment on it. Ugh. My comment is, how if Gobbo blood be green? Aw, okay. I gotta... Alright. I do like all was red here. Like, this is like a very whatever. The Blaclaw were the victors, but what had they won? There were no dwarves left to enslave. Every dwarven warrior, and even the women and children, had been thrown into the final battle. When all hope fled, the dwarves triggered their last resort. The great lever was thrown. 1,000 supports crumbled at once, and a titanic avalanche broke Shining Peak in half. The olden kingdom was no more. The spoils Blacaba sought were entombed forever. The Blackhawk horde was cut to a quarter. The Gorelord fared even worse. Battered and bewildered, Brackakak bent the knee and begged for mercy. Blacaba longed to behead him, but their losses were too great. He had to swallow his fury and deal with the inevitable betrayal later. The Sorcerer Supreme was spared, and the Gorelord pledged alliance to the Blaclaw. For the first time, all of goblin kind marched behind one ruler. At last, Blacaba was the true... let's call him the one true Maga. Maga. Flush with newfound power, Blacaba stood upon the ebon stone at the heart of the Sisyphus and looked at what he'd wrought. Even now he was unsatisfied. When the victory feast began, Blacaba ate little and quickly lost interest. He retired to the command tent to plan his next move. The others showed no such restraint. The celebration raged all night and well into day. No one stood scout, for they believed all their foes were slain. They were wrong. A 4th army approached from the south. The Grand Imperial Army marched to the aid of Shining Peak, bound by an ancient treaty with the Olden dynasty. They were days late, by design. The commander was Fairly, the Emperor's own son.
A devout humanist, Fairley saw no reason to rescue the dirt-grubbing dwarves or to sully his golden armor with rank goblin blood. He aimed to arrive after both sides had bled each other dry. Once the survivors were mopped up, he could claim the dwarven treasures for himself. By the bedlam below, he was certain he'd hit the mark. The dwarves were long dead, and the goblins were all but obliterated. And the goblins were obliterated by grief and potent dwarven rum. They lay in the blood-stained dust, beaten without a blow. Fairley only needed to wait for the footmen to catch up with his cavalry. The Grand Imperial Army would roll down the rise like a boulder and flatten the goblin dregs. But the sun was high, and the moment seemed very ripe. There we go. In the righteous glare, the night-loving goblins would be all but blind. Oh, there we go. At the center of the Sisydius, Fairley spied a chance for unequaled glory. The goblin command tents were pitched around the black dot. The The goblin command tents were pitched around a disk of black stone. His horsemen could charge into their midst before they could rouse. Oh, yeah. Fairley's horsemen could charge into their midst before they could rouse. There, he could challenge Blakaba Ba to single combat. The bards would sing of his charge forevermore. Fairley gave the order. To a man, his officers refused. Veterans all, they argued to wait until the footmen arrived. By then, it would be night. The advantage would be lost. By then it would be night, and their advantage would be lost. Fairley cursed them as cowards. Let's check that out. Because we say earlier, like, all he has to do is just wait for the footmen to arrive, easy victory, and then we contradict ourselves. So let's just take that out. Fairley cursed them as cowards, stripped them of rank, and field promoted his friends into their positions. No, we don't need the... his closest friends. He would not be denied. At his call, the Imperial cavalry flew over the ridge and charged downhill to meet their destiny. Though his troops were drunk and disorganized, Blakaba Ba was cold sober. A Maja could never afford to let his guard down. As the Imperial cornets blew, he threw open the flap of his tent. Does cornet have two T's? That seems, or is it coronet? I always do this. Cornet doesn't mean what I think it does. Like, there's a cornet that's like a crown. Yeah.
cornet, okay, so cornet is the right way. A tenor cornet. They look dope, actually. I should get one of these. The German for it is zinc, by the way. I think I have another story where somebody blows a narwhal zinc or something like that. I'm glad that nobody is commenting on how bad this prose is. Because it's choppy, man. Sometimes I think when people grow silent during the editing streams, it's just because everybody is like, I don't know how to fix this at once, just like me. Anyhow, as the Imperial cornets blew, he threw open the flap of his tent and squinted south. The southern horizon seemed to be a single line of armored horsemen. Blackaba's cruel lips twisted into a grin. Fairly blazed like a star at the vanguard of the charge. Since birth, the Emperor's son had trained for war alone. He ignored art, abhorred philosophy, and certainly cared nothing for ancient history. He knew nothing of the Enterwald, the Sidious, or why the armies of old had shed so much blood to control the Ebonstone. Blackaба knew. He dragged the stupefied Sorcerer Supreme by his pointy hood and out to the center of the black tableau. With a vile incantation, he offered Brackacac's tawdry soul to the void. She never answered, but she was always hungry. Brackacac back in his Why do I do this twice? Brackacac back. So one of the reasons why I kill this character off is just because it's the names are they're different, but they're it's easy to confuse the two. So just by wiping this guy out now, we save ourselves some problems. With a vile incantation, he offered Brackacac back to the void. She never answered, but she was always hungry. Brackacac back and his tawdry soul were swallowed into the Ebonstone as if they'd never been. On a cloudless day, the crater grew dark. Blackaba blew 3 piercing notes on a silver whistle, loud enough to raise the dead. Across the camp, insensate goblins rose from their squalor, eyes wide with panic. As the Imperial cavalry roared down the hill, the black moon swallowed the sun. A molten rain fell upon the battlefield and struck both sides, growing fiercer all the time. As Fairley drew near the Blackaw encampment, meteors screamed down and blasted his ranks. Knights were flung from their mounts and trampled. War horses balked and wheeled, their riders crashed together like cymbals. The goblins woke into black pandemonium and rose against their foes. A hurricane of sling stones and arrows, A hail of sling stones and arrows clanged against the thick Imperial plate. The flanks faltered, but the Imperial flanks faltered, but the main thrust still followed Fairley. They were halfway to the Ebonstone. At the fore, Fairley raised the hammer standard and sang out a prayer to his father. They were nearly at their goal. Fairley met Blackaba's yellow eyes and called out a challenge. The Magi smirked at his gauntlet and stepped behind his bodyguards. They closed around him, bearing shields stripped from the defeated dwarves of Shining Peak. Fairley cursed Blackaba as an honorless dog, but he was drowned out in a peal of horns. From the north, a chevron of horsemen crusted the silver hills with the Imperial standard raised high. Reinforcements at last! Fairley shouted to rally his troops and bore forward. He did not see the stains on the new arrivals' armor, nor the madness in their eyes. Traitors! Is there anything more fantastical than clashing together like symbols? Seems like it could be more visual. Waves, Let me see. How about this one? War horses balked and wheeled. Throne riders crashed together like cymbals. Psh, I like it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me give Stratum a point there. Just that one change is enough for me. Like if you have a another suggestion, I would give it a shot. But that's all. I'm low on mana. Beat off like 11 times today. So, boom, you're up to 5 points. Mm-hmm. Yeah, even that's a little change helps a lot, man. Throne, just having like that action verb helps. All right. Duke Yamon thundered in human laughter and charged directly at Fairly. The Emperor's son wheeled to meet his charge. Yamon hurled himself from his saddle. A moment too late. Yamon hurled himself from his saddle and unhorsed Fairly. Mounted, Fairly was matchless, but Yamon dragged him into the dirt and hammered him like an anvil. The gilded armor crumpled like tin. A mailed fist crushed his windpipe and squeezed until his spine snapped. With a bloody grin, Yamon tore off Fairly's head and raised it over the battlefield. Like the Predator, oh yeah. The Emperor's son was slain. The goblins went mad with delight. A green tide welled around the horrified cavalry and dragged them down. A few managed to flee, but Yamon's horsemen gave pursuit and rode them down like dogs. The battle was over in minutes. The infantry caught... Mm-hmm. The Imperial infantry caught word and diverted east in full retreat. The invincible cavalry of the Imperium was no more. Now all four corners of the map were singed black. Only the center held. Columns of defeated troops and refugees limped to Black Boar and begged for shelter. Already the Blackaw horde was on the move, in a slow-moving wave that gained strength by the day. Goblins and monsters issued from all the crevices of the world, drawn by the Maja's aura. By the time the Blacklaw horde returned to the Valley of Six Mists, it had doubled in size. Once more, Blakaba Ba stood atop a bluff, stared across the Viridian River, and dreamed of conquest. The Gore Lord were no more, but Black Boar remained. Clever yellow eyes peered up at the moon gate. He could feel a presence, a real challenge at last. Blakaba looked higher, to the falls where the six rivers met. He looked higher, to the stars above, to the black moon that slid between them. When the signs were right, the final battle would be fought here. In his dreams, all was red. The Maja's lips twisted in a jagged grin. There was a massacre ahead. All right, cool. Let me get a drink, and then... So, long chapter with lots of stuff going on, just kind of hammering that the world is on fire and all these different armies are happening here. But I think kind of critical to keep the feeling and pacing of the campaign going. This is... How many pages does this go on for? 331... A lot of pages. This is like a 7,000 word chapter. 331 to... Yeah, that's 8 pages there. And then we have more pages here, like right after a chapter that is just like a teeny little one. All right, hold on. Wait. Let me go to the dog cam. This is important, guys. What's happening while we're editing? Oh. She slept through the whole edit.
What a G. All right, here. Let me go back here. I gotta get another drink. And let's focus on our leaderboard. Yeah, Stratum, what is your... My cat is in a very similar position behind me. What's your air quality meter reading at the... Oh, that's why I'm... Oh. It's like there's just dust like all over the world. What's your air quality reader reading at the moment there? I had to get a CO2 meter because there's like a boiler for the entire trailer complex down here with me. So like I didn't want to get snuffed. So I've got like the monoxide and dioxide meters. Ooh, let's see here. Yeah, I'm like out of breath getting up and walking over. It's over. All right. Okay, cool. Oh, no. All right, so then we get into the real world part of this. Yes. This is so much cooler than the River War scenario. Plus, it serves Vlad right for changing course to attack the dwarves instead of finishing the Gorelord off. The club is going to love this. We don't need the plus. It serves Vlad right for changing course to attack the dwarves instead of finishing the Gorelord off. The club is going to love this. My smoke level is at 578 hazardous. It's super smoky outside. I got air filters going on high. Current CO2 levels is 1,047. Not bad considering window hasn't been opened in 24 hours. Wild. Hazardous. Yeah, I am like bummed when I get over 600. It's rough. But I'm like in a, across the world. Yes, this is so much cooler than the River War scenario. Serves Vlad right. It serves Vlad right for changing course to attack the dwarves instead of finishing the Gorelord off. No. Because that wasn't Vlad's choice. This is Duncan that's engineering this. The club is going to love this. Imagine all the armies on the table at once. It'll look so cool, Robin breathed. When he closed his eyes, he could almost see the doomed knights charging down the slope with pit smoke billowing from their hooves. Imagine all the armies on the table at once. It'll look so cool, Robin breathed. There's just one problem, Duncan said. What's that? Imagine a nightmare scenario where Vlad beats everyone at once. Everybody at once. Yeah, everyone is better. Because everybody at once versus everyone at once. One at once. Yeah. Sounds cool. You have no idea how insufferable he'll be. Like for years to come. How will we tell the difference? Ha, good point. Win or lose, this is an awesome development for the campaign. Win or lose, this is an awesome development for the campaign. I'm going to bring 2 tables together and build a massive crater. I'll have my dad figure out the scenario rules so it's fair for everyone. I wish I could be there to see it. I'll take pictures and record all the moves. When I call, I'll give you the whole play-by-play. I can't wait. Me neither. You're gonna be out of there before you know it. Right around the time you're clear to come back to the club, we're gonna be building up for the final act of the campaign. We have a huge duos battle every year to kick off the summer. Then, eventually, I want to have a gigantic siege at Black Boar. It'd be so cool to have the giant ramparts with all the waterfalls in the background. Maybe we could do a painted backdrop, like a play. That'd be really cool. I've been thinking about making some waterfall terrain with a compartment for dry ice, so mist billows out of it. Oh man, that'd be killer. You'd get in Black Labyrinth for sure. That's the dream. My dad says our LOR sales go nuts every time we get in the magazine. Speaking of sales, did the Heartbroken Brigade have any roster changes recently? Yes. Thank you for helping my grandma pick them out. She gave them to me one at a time, as rewards for making it through the Dano Rubison sessions. What's that? She gave them to me one at a time. As rewards for making it through each Dano Rubison session. What's that? It's this bright red gunk. LOR is Lords of Rapasaurus. The name of the game that they're all playing. And it's appropriate to have this TLA because they have covered this many, many times and it is long. Let's see. What's that? It's this bright red gunk that will melt your skin off if it touches you. They call it the Red Devil. Whoa, that's metal. And they pump that into your veins? Yeah, and they measure it. Yeah, and they measure it to the tiniest degree because it can kill you super easy. You can only take so much during your lifetime before it stops your heart. Wow. The line grew quiet. Robin had said too much. Anyhow, it was rough at the start, but I'm doing all right now. It's mostly just boring and the food is awful. When they let me out of this tank, I'll have lots of time to read and paint. I'm not sure if I'm good enough to paint Abaxios yet. All those little runes on his robe are nuts. Yeah, maybe just paint your rank and file troops for now. He's tiny. Maybe just point your rank and file troops for now. When you're back in action, I'll bet Sandy would give you a hand with the characters. He's been sort of, I'll bet Sandy would give you a hand with the characters. He's been sort of subdued without you around. He's been almost subdued without you around. Chuck and Vlad don't really get his jokes. Their loss. That guy's a riot. Yeah, he's a goof, but a good dude too. He said he hopes you do. He said he hopes you draw. He said he hopes he draws you as a partner for duos. Oh, and his mom wants to know if she can send you some of those cookies you liked. Ah, that's cool. I wish she could, but they won't let me have anything from outside yet. Please tell her I said thanks for thinking of me. Will do. Hey, do you want the rhinestones I have left over from making Aravitramore? You could use them to mod the Berserker, and you... mod the Berserker with the Shard Drake plate. Ooh, yeah, that would be cool. Maybe I can fit the Mastersmith into the story somewhere. Totally. Maybe they have to go on a quest to find him, or free him from a dungeon or something. The Mastersmith is so good. Nobody really fields him anymore since the dwarves are out of favor, but he hits like a truck, and his bonuses would be nuts with 2 legendaries. Don't tell Vlad. Ha! Never. I can't wait to see the look on his face. Hey bud, I gotta start on inventory soon. Hang in there and rest up. Thanks for all the great ideas. I'll call again next Sunday and tell you how it went. Thanks for the call, Dunk. Really cheers me up. De nada, amigo. Robin held a hand over his mouth so he didn't laugh at Duncan's accent. Orale. That means right on, Robin explained. Right on, right on. By the way, I told the other guys your room number. Some of them might give you a call. I hope that's all right. Yeah, that's great, actually. I'm like a prisoner in here. I'd even talk to JC. The harder the battle, the sweeter the victory. We're all rooting for you. The glow hung on for a while after the call. Robin almost didn't feel like he was in the hospital. Thoughts of the campaign burned behind his eyes. He laid back in bed and let them run wild. The Heartbroken Brigade had so much more to do. He just had to make it out of this room.
That's chapter 39 right there.
With a bullet.
All right. So, all right, here's your chance to guess how many words were in chapter 39. I'm going to say 5,700. Although it's probably like, I'm always overestimating how many words there are. Would it took me about an hour to read through all that? Probably closer to like 4,200. I'm going to split the difference with 4,500 words. If you want to guess, now is the time. 3010 from Agatha. All right, let's find out. The moment of truth, boys. So we go to the dashboard for Robin the Prodigy. We got... Wow. Wow, look at how close you were. Wow, and you're even underneath. So you had 3010, and it's 3060. I'm like thinking like 6,000 or whatever there. Damn, Agatha. I gotta give you an extra point. Honestly, yes, I'm gonna give you a point. Just because you were within, let's say if you're within 50, you get a point. I think that's solid, and you are exactly within 50 points. So it's not fair, but it also ties you up with logic. Suck it, logic. Although if you tie, that means I have to send out 2 hats. It's a tight race. I'm giving you the point. Like I'm a gambling man when it comes to it. I love guessing on anything there. I like too that I'm the one that's been writing for 30 years ostensibly, and I can't guess. And I'm reading every single word and cannot for the life of me like guess how many words there are there because I'm all just going on emotion and feeling and stuff. All right, we're almost to chapter 40. We are with the next chapter. We'll be 2/3 of the way through with the chapters, and I think that they are shorter towards the end of the book. And this is 257 pages. There are like 150, 140 or so odd pages left, I believe. We will do it. We will finish this novel just through sheer tyranny of will. So again, if you can, do me a huge favor and sign up with it can even be a bogus account like Twinkweller, Trunton, or whatever there. And just, you have to like click through all the pages of the story. There's like just 40 different pages. I don't think it counts how long you spend on each. And then you can leave a review so that more people will check out the story. I'm trying so hard. Also, if you have a friend that likes Spanish or leukemia or fantasy wargaming in the 70s, I know it's so broad, my appeal for this piece. Let them know that this is going on, and maybe they will enjoy it too. Thank you so much. Penis bump. I'll see you guys tomorrow.